Welcome to Mind the Gap, where we explore the space between where we are and where we want to be. Today, we're talking about certainty, why we crave it, how it shapes our decisions, and what happens when we fear the unknown. Drawing on philosophy, psychology, and Viktor Frankl's paradoxical intention, we'll explore how embracing uncertainty can unlock resilience and growth. Here's Michael.
We all love a bit of certainty. It makes life feel predictable, manageable, like we've a bit of control over things. What if I told you that clinging to certainty might be holding you back? What if your need for clear answers, guaranteed outcomes, and absolute truths stops you from growing, making better decisions, and living life to the fullest? In this episode of Mind the Gap, we're looking at how our need for certainty shapes our choices, our careers, relationships, and how we handle change. Why do we cling to it? How does it work against us? And more importantly, how can we learn to handle uncertainty without feeling like the rug has been pulled out from under us? We'll be drawing on existential philosophy, emotional intelligence, modern psychology, and Viktor Frankl's paradoxical intention. But don't worry, there's no heavy lecture here, just some insight that we can use. Our brains are wired for certainty. It's a survival instinct. Back then, knowing where danger lurked and where the next meal was coming from was essential. Today, we don't have to worry too much about the saber-toothed tiger, but we still crave control over our jobs, relationships, and general directions of our lives. Psychologists like Daniel Kahneman and Amos Tversky studied this in depth. They found that our brains are biased towards certainty, even when it's not in our best interest. The certainty effect means we overvalue what's familiar and predictable, even if taking a chance could lead to something far better. We stick with what we know instead of embracing what might be possible. But here's the thing. When we refuse to step into the unknown, we get stuck. We stop questioning, stop adapting, and start playing it too safe. And that's where things start to fall apart. Let's bring in the existentialists. Unlike philosophers who try to pin down universal truths, existentialists embrace uncertainty as part of life. Jean-Paul Sartre argued that life has no fixed meaning, only the meaning we create for ourselves. That idea forces us to confront uncertainty instead of running from it. Then there's Albert Camus, who spoke about how humans constantly search for order in a world that doesn't always make sense. His idea of the absurd suggests that instead of trying to control everything, we must accept that life is unpredictable. Camus famously wrote,
"The struggle for heights is enough to fill a man's heart. One must imagine Sisyphus happy."
What he's saying is that instead of fighting uncertainty, we should learn to live with it, and even find joy in it. So what does that mean for us? Instead of fearing uncertainty, we should train ourselves to adapt, stay grounded, and make better decisions, even when we don't have all the answers. Psychiatrist and Holocaust survivor Viktor Frankl developed a powerful concept called paradoxical intention, which teaches that sometimes the more we try to control a fear, the stronger it becomes. In other words, the more you resist uncertainty, the more anxiety it creates. Frankl discovered that when patients with extreme anxieties deliberately exaggerated their fears or leaned into them, their fear lost its power. Take insomnia, for example. If a person is afraid of not sleeping and obsesses over getting a good night's rest, their anxiety makes it harder for them to fall asleep. Frankl encouraged them to try not to sleep, but to stay awake on purpose. In many cases, the pressure to sleep disappeared, and they found it easier to rest. This principle applies to uncertainty too. The more we try to resist it, the more we feel stuck. But when we lean into it and say, "All right, let's see what happens," we often find that our fear was worse than the reality itself. Let's be honest, our need for certainty has some significant downsides. Stress and anxiety. Trying to control everything is exhausting. And since life rarely goes exactly as planned, we feel frustrated and anxious when things don't go our way. Fear-based decision making. Have you ever passed up a great opportunity because it felt risky? That's undoubtedly going to keep you stuck. Fixed versus growth mindset. Carol Dweck's research shows that people with a fixed mindset crave certainty because they believe their abilities are set in stone, while those with a growth mindset see uncertainty as an essential part of learning. Analysis paralysis. Have you ever spent so long thinking about a decision that you did nothing? That's what happens when you're too obsessed with getting things right instead of just getting started. Two of the most common fears people experience are a fear of flying and public speaking. Both are prime examples of how the need for certainty can manifest as an intense anxiety. People with a fear of flying often crave certainty about safety. They want guarantees that nothing will go wrong, that turbulence won't mean disaster, and that every pilot and aircraft is operating at 100% perfection. But flying, much like life, involves a level of unpredictability. Planes encounter turbulence, delays happen, and weather changes. Those with flight anxiety may focus obsessively on statistics or rituals to create an illusion of control. But the truth is, learning to accept a level of uncertainty is the only way to overcome this fear truly. The same applies to public speaking. Many people fear standing up in front of an audience because they can't predict how the crowd will react. Will they judge me? Will I forget what I'm saying? Will I embarrass myself? The craving for certainty, knowing that all will go smoothly, keeps many from ever stepping onto a stage. But the best speakers aren't the ones who control every outcome. They're the ones who adapt in the moment, embrace the unexpected, and keep going even when things don't go to plan. Using paradoxical intention, someone afraid of public speaking might try deliberately exaggerating their fear, telling themselves, I'm going to stand up there and try my absolute best to mess this up. This removes the pressure and helps them perform better. Certainty is comforting, but it can also be a trap. The most successful, adaptable and resilient people aren't the ones who always have the correct answers. They're the ones who can handle not knowing and still move forward. Viktor Frankl reminds us that the harder we try to control uncertainty, the more power it has over us. But when we lean into it, even welcome it, we often find that we're far more capable of handling the unknown than we ever imagined. One of the best ways to handle uncertainty is to expand our comfort zone. The more you expose yourself to situations where you don't have full control, the more you realize that uncertainty isn't something to fear. It's something to navigate. Expanding your comfort zone allows you to develop psychological flexibility, a key component of emotional intelligence. According to Dr. Susan David, author of Emotional Agility, the ability to step outside of habitual responses and embrace discomfort leads to greater resilience and well-being. People who avoid uncertainty tend to reinforce their fears, whereas those who deliberately expose themselves to new challenges develop the ability to adapt and thrive. Some practical strategies for expanding your comfort zone. Start small. Trying something slightly different in your daily routine can help train your brain to handle bigger uncertainties. Try ordering something unfamiliar at a restaurant or listening to a type of music that you wouldn't normally choose. Seek out discomfort. Instead of avoiding situations that make you uneasy, lean into them. If you struggle with social anxiety, start small conversations with strangers. This is recommended by Dr. Ellen Hendrickson in her book How to Be Yourself. Embrace playfulness. Best-selling author Dr. Stuart Brown, who studies the role of play in human development, argues that incorporating spontaneity into daily life builds creativity and adaptability. Try improv, take up a new hobby, or experimenting with different ways of thinking can make uncertainty feel less intimidating. Reframe fear as excitement. This is one of my favorites. Neuroscientist Dr. Wendy Suzuki explains that fear and excitement trigger the same psychological response in the brain. So instead of seeing uncertainty as threatening, try viewing it as an exciting opportunity or challenge. Eleanor Roosevelt famously said, "Do one thing every day that scares you." She believed that facing discomfort head-on was the key to building confidence and resilience. Her own journey from a shy, uncertain child to one of the most influential women in history was built on deliberately stepping outside her comfort zone. Expanding your comfort zone isn't about reckless risk-taking. It's about gradual, intentional exposure to uncertainty that builds confidence and adaptability. By doing this, we develop the ability to handle life's unpredictability with grace rather than fear. Ultimately, the key to handling uncertainty isn't eliminating it, it's learning how to move through it, one step at a time. Life is full of gaps between where we are and where we want to be. And the answer isn't to fill those gaps with certainty. It's to learn how to move through them with trust, curiosity, and an open mind. And after all, that's what Mind the Gap is all about.
That's today's episode of Mind the Gap. Michael has explored how the need for certainty can hold us back, and how embracing uncertainty can lead to resilience, growth, and unexpected opportunities. If today's discussion resonated with you, don't keep it to yourself. Share this episode with a friend, colleague, or anyone who might benefit from it. And of course, make sure to subscribe so you never miss an episode. Your support helps us continue these conversations and bring you more insights on navigating life's uncertainties. Thanks for listening, and until next time, keep learning, keep growing, and most importantly, mind the gap.